Well, good evening and welcome to tonight's fourth quarter Songs Community Engagement Panel meeting. My name is Dan Stetson and I am the volunteer chair of the CEP. Thank you all for joining us this evening. First of all, I'd like to wish a belated Happy Veterans Day to my fellow veterans. Sincere thanks for your service. Please note that tonight's meeting is being recorded. Our main topic for today is Songs Dismantlement Update. A draft presentation was posted to the Songs website a week ago. As I'm sure you will recall, during the October 16th CEP educational seminar, we had some technical issues that made it difficult for some members of the public to participate. I sincerely apologize. Since then, SCE has been diligently working to correct these issues. We understand that these issues have been corrected and they have updated their Microsoft Teams troubleshooting document. Instructions on how to use Microsoft Teams and the revised troubleshooting document are available on the meeting webpage. Please note also the read-only appendix slides at the end of the presentation include the Spent Fuel Solutions Coalition update and Songs liquid batch releases updates. Let me thank Julia Martinez from Songs in advance for advancing the slides. Next slide, please. Here you see our agenda and speakers. Fred Bailey, SCE Vice President of Generation and Chief Nuclear Officer, will cover the big picture at Songs. We will have a couple of brief community updates. After that, we'll tune in for the main focus of tonight's meeting. Jim Peaty, SCE General Manager, Site Operations, will provide this dismantlement update. Next, Mark Morgan, SCE Regulatory Affairs Manager, will discuss NRC regulatory compliance. And finally, Ron Pontes, SCE Manager of Site Closure and Environmental Oversight, will provide environmental updates. I want to thank and welcome back Dr. James Burns from the University of Virginia. Dr. Burns, as you will recall, was our guest speaker at the October 16th CEP Educational Seminar and agreed to join us again this evening in case we have any additional questions related to his presentation on chloride-induced stress corrosion cracking. Thank you, Dr. Burns. We appreciate you being here this evening and so glad you made it back to Virginia and where it's only a little bit after 8 o'clock and not some ungodly morning hours. So welcome back. Following the presentations, we'll take a short break and dedicate an hour to public comment. CEP Vice Chair Victor Cabral and CEP Secretary Martha McNicholas will facilitate public dialogue. Next, I'd like to turn it over to Fred for his comments regarding the agenda. Fred?
Of course, I was on mute. Hey, thank you, Dan. It's great to be back. We decided to release all canisters inspection photos to reinforce our commitment to transparency and share those at the October 16 seminar on spent fuel. I echo Dan, your thanks to Dr. Burns for joining us again to address potential additional questions related to our canisters' resistance to corrosion during the comment period. I really appreciate the continued support and engagement from the CEP members. As you mentioned, tonight's the focus is the dismantlement update. Jim Peaty will discuss a recent incident when handling a piece of equipment. There were no consequences, but we decided to share this as an incident that happened at the site. Mark Morgan will review 3 NRC Level 4 non-siting violations. Those Level 4 non-sited violations are the lowest level of the NRC violations. However, any violation to us, any violation is unacceptable, and corrective actions are in place. And Ron will provide the latest on tritium monitoring and explain the DTSC's non-compliance violation from November 4th. And with that, I'll turn it back to you, Dan.
Thank you, Fred. And thank you also in SCE for agreeing to release all the photos during our last meeting. I think it goes a long way to speak about the transparency that you're committed to, and also working towards building trust. So we greatly appreciate that. Let's move on to the next slide, please. Here you'll see directions for participating in public comment. As always, members of the public had the opportunity to submit comments and questions in advance. Comments submitted by email to newcom@sce.com receive priority, and that address is available on the meeting webpage. During the meeting, folks can submit written comments or sign up for oral comment using the online CEP comment form. For CEP members, if you have a question or comment, please use the raise hand icon under reactions at the top of your screen so we can identify you and make you a presenter. For CEP members who may join in late and may not be able to see their name on the list and change their status from guest to presenter and thereby allow them to open and close their microphone, in that case, CEP members will have to use the raise hand icon for us to see their name and make them a presenter. For CE members calling in on audio only, like Marnie, great, you're doing that, Marnie, to open and close your microphone, please use *6 and keep yourself muted until you wish to speak. CEP members should use the *5 to raise your hand by phone. For any questions, Martha and Victor will facilitate the public dialogue. Now I'd like to turn it back over to Fred for the song's big picture update.
Right, thanks, Dan. I'll talk about the guiding principles at songs with safety, starting with safety first, whether it's radiologic or industrial safety. Those are our top priorities. Worker behaviors remain a key focus. We're glad that we did surpass 3 million hours without a lost time accident a few weeks ago. Jim Petey will share a safety update in tonight's presentation. The stewardship, we're responsible for the safe storage of spent fuel until DOE comes and picks it up. And we will continue to bring updates on our efforts to move the fuel offsite. On a broader picture, our experts are dedicated to dismantlement, waste packaging, transportation, and environmental protection. Regarding engagement, we value openness through public meetings, our website, speaking events, and tours. I want to thank those who joined our recent walking tours. Please share your experience. And the next public tour is going to be Saturday, December 6th. And on the 3 major work streams, dismantling above ground structures, it's way over halfway done. It's on track for mid-2027 completion. We're continuing to safely manage used fuel on site and advocating for off-site storage and disposal to clear spent fuel from the site. A quick word on the project timeline. While our schedule evaluation sets the project completion for early 2029, we're working with our contractor, Songs Decommissioning Solutions, to finish by the end of 2028. That's our big picture, Dan.
So, Fred, a quick question. Completion by the end of 2028. So that means the on-site, for the most part, will be completed and the domes will be gone?
The domes will be done basically by mid-2027.
Wow. Okay. Wow, that's amazing.
And then there's a lot of, so there's still a lot of waste to ship off-site, and then grading activities, and then final site survey activities.
Great. Thank you, Fred. Next slide, please. In a moment, we're going to do community updates, but I'd first like to recognize and thank our CEP members. So next slide, please. Here you can see a list of volunteers who serve on the CEP. Although our CEP members, alternates, are not listed here, they do play a vital role and stay actively informed about SONG's activities. I want to thank all of our CEP members and their alternates for their continued support and interest in the song's decommissioning, especially this year with the addition of the CEP Educational Seminar. We appreciate your time, questions, and engagement. Special thanks, of course, to CEP Vice Chair Victor Cabral and Secretary Martha McNicholas. Actually, we really have a great turnout for our CEP members and alternates, so I really want to spend a special thank you for them. Next slide, please. I have a couple of community updates to share with you this evening. First, during the third quarter CEP meeting on August 28th, the CEP asked Fred if he would consider releasing all the canister inspection photographs. SCE, as I noted, agreed not only to release all the photos, but organized a CEP educational seminar to discuss, number one, the inspection images, two, explain how the inspections found canisters to be in good condition, and three, we'll focus on efforts to remove the spent fuel from the site. Also invited Dr. James Burns from the University of Virginia to explain the science behind chloride-induced stress corrosion cracking. The meeting was well attended, and we dedicated a full hour to public comment. Second, I would like to say a few comments about the Irvine City Council meeting on September 30th. On September 30th, Fred Bailey and Manuel Camargo of SCE and I attended and presented at a special Irvine City Council meeting called by Mayor Larry Agron regarding the safe storage of spent nuclear fuel at San Onofre and the efforts to remove the spent fuel off-site. We all agree that the nuclear fuel needs to be relocated away from Songs as soon as possible. The nuclear waste is an important issue to solve for the entire country. As a 38-year resident of Irvine, as a member of the CEP, I'd like to thank the City of Irvine for joining the Spent Fuel Solutions Coalition. I would also encourage the city to pass a resolution of support for the coalition and also encourage Irvine to join the Interjurisdictional Planning Committee, as we have discussed at a number of meetings. That concludes my updates. Next slide, please. I will now turn it over to Jim Petrie for the Songs Dismantlement update. Jim, whenever you are ready, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you, Dan. Hopefully you can hear me.
I can hear you fine.
Great. All right. Well, thank you for the opportunity to talk about the Songs decommissioning update. I am the manager for site operations, which also includes oversight of what's going on with our decommissioning contractor. So tonight, I'll give you an update. A lot of the slides are typical of the same slides that SDS presented. They're just updated. And I also have quite a few photographs that I can basically show you and the public on the activities physically that are going on, describe what you see in the photos. And if you have any questions, by all means, please feel free to stop me, let me know if people have questions. Okay, next slide, please. Oh, never mind, safety overview. As Fred mentioned, industrial safety is a key focus along with radiological safety. Our focus, along with SDS's, is on safety culture and compliance with the programs and procedures that help people execute their work and do it safely. The big focus also is on emphasizing hazard recognition and situational awareness. So this goes down to the individuals themselves when they go out to each of the job sites as they get ready to do the work. Make sure that they are understanding the hazards that are in place. Those hazards are aligned with what they were briefed on, right? And that they're aware of how they're going to go mitigate or manage those hazards. And if not, go back and request another brief. Ultimately, that goal leads to things like the next, which is the celebration of 3 million hours worked without a lost time accident. On a project of this scale, that's pretty unprecedented. So we have not had a lost time accident since April of 2022. So it's been quite a while. Obviously, that's not necessarily an indicator of what will happen tomorrow, but is a good indicator of whether or not your activities and performance are leading you to do work safely. So we do focus on that, and we did celebrate that. Radiological safety, very similar. We focus on that also. We do track, right now we're tracking to meet our ALARA dose goal for the year. That's 125 REM, so that's across the entire project. And we do focus on a daily basis radiological best practices. So anytime there's a deviation, we learn from those, we improve our practices, and ideally we want to be the best when it comes to radiological controls and dose. Okay, next slide. Okay, so as Fred mentioned, a material handling incident. So while all of the safety metrics and everything is good, there are occasions where things get through the cracks. Ideally, when these things happened, nobody gets injured, as was the case here. So back on October 21st, at about 11 o'clock at night, 2300, there is a self-propelled modular transporter unit that's called the SPMT. In that picture there on the lower right, you can see the SPMT is that big trailer designed to haul and move very heavy loads. It's basically self-propelled. It operates off of hydraulics with an operator using a remote control to move it. It moves very slowly. We're talking a couple miles an hour at the most. They were using this SPMT to move that device that's on that trailer. That piece of equipment is called our turntable or turnable lifting rod. That actual device, and I have some photographs later in my presentation, is used to pick up the reactor vessel. All right, so it's about 40 feet long. It weighs 73,000 pounds. It's very heavy. You can see it's long. It's a little awkward. It gets placed on this SPMT, and then we are going to move it from Unit 3 containment. So take it out of Unit 3 containment and move it over to Unit 2 containment. It was done being used in Unit 3. It was being prepped to be used in Unit 2. In the process of coming out of Unit 3 containment, when they went to turn and make a left-hand turn at the east end of the plant, that device and the SPMT actually rolled over onto its side. Again, no personnel were injured. Nobody was in the area at the time. They were basically operating this remotely. They were monitoring it. We have recovered the piece of equipment. We have recovered the SPMT. Right now, we're doing inspections of that piece of equipment. That's a critical piece of equipment needed for reactor vessel segmentation. And it will be needed, as I mentioned, in Unit 2. The contractor, SDS, has committed to do a root cause evaluation. They also, like us, are very interested in understanding why this occurred. Was it human performance related? Was it equipment related? To understand how to prevent it from in the future in any other place where they plan to use the SPMT to use or to move heavy loads. So the root cause evaluation is actually underway.
When will we hear a report on that?
Typically, root cause evaluations can take upwards of 60 days. That's their clock per their procedure. So I would expect somewhere in the next 3 to 4 weeks, we would see a draft version, and a final version without any move to extend it is probably somewhere late December.
Okay.
Jim, a quick question. So the turntable lifting rod, was that shipped in here from another location?
It's actually a unique piece of equipment that's only manufactured for songs. It's a specialty piece of equipment. It's basically built to lift our reactor in this location in our design. So it's unique to songs. When it's done here, it won't be used anywhere else.
Okay, and how did it get here? Did it come on a train?
Yeah, I believe it was shipped air freight and then handled. This was actually designed and built in Germany under Simplecamp.
Oh my gosh.
Yep. It's actually assembled, right? So it actually comes in pieces. You can bolt it together, assemble it, the lower half and the upper. And then once you install it, you load test it, you certify it, and then it becomes a usable, functional piece of equipment. And then, as I mentioned, it is unique. We only have one. There were not spares, and we do intend to use it in Unit 2.
Thank you, Jim.
Yep.
Any other questions?
Yeah. Do we have any preliminary reports or observations about why they think it fell?
I think we do have those verbally. it's probably not okay to share those in general because it's still conjecture. I'd rather have expertise really understand it, but there was an engineered plan. There were people trying to follow that plan in place at the time. It could be the plan itself. It could be how they followed it. The other unique thing to note is while you can see it here, it's out in the open. When it was removed from Unit 3 containment, it was actually fully wrapped in plastic, right? So you had a harder time seeing all of the pieces and components and taking measurements. All right, and that was because it wasn't a reactor vessel and it was slightly contaminated, right? So it made sense to just wrap it in plastic, shield it, move it into the other containment, and use it in the other containment.
So are there plans to use it before the investigative report is completed?
I would say I don't know that for certain, but I would say yes, since the handling event isn't related to the use of the equipment. All right,
Okay.
the equipment will not be used though until the original vendor certifies it. So they're going to do a full inspection and certify it and make sure that it's back to its original design specs before we use it.
Thank you.
So there is an inspection plan being developed right now, Victor. We expect to see that maybe this weekend, and then they'll proceed with the physical inspection of this device. This device right now has been rigged, lifted in place into the Unit 2 containment right now.
Okay.
And
That
Jim,
sounds
because this didn't really involve anything that was highly radioactive, you didn't have to file a report with the NRC, is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
Okay, no other questions? Go to the next
No.
slide. Okay, similar to what the presentation with the contractor, this is really their map. This is an update on what's going on. The areas in blue are active demolition activities. We're really focused on the large blue areas, safety equipment, fuel handlings. Those are on the north side of the domes. And then there's a slight blue area on the left side that was the aux feed. That's actually wrapped up now. So you can see the site as a whole. Most of the buildings and structures, above ground structures, have been demolished. What's left are the two round containment domes. And way at the right-hand side is what we call our South Yard facility. There's some above ground support buildings that will be demolished. They are not part of the actual power plant, but they do still need to be demolished. Okay, next slide. Again, this is our general overview of the schedule. Really, in 2025, it was focused on RV segmentation, the auxiliary building demolition or controlled building demolition, and large components, which you don't actually see on there, but that the large components work is essentially wrapped up. RV segmentation, Unit 3 is near completion. I'll talk about that. It'll go into 2026. Probably late first quarter, middle of the second quarter of 2026, RV segmentation will finish on Unit 2. Building demolition, those large blue areas, should wrap up early in 2026. And then we'll move here shortly right into Unit 3 interior demolition of the containment buildings. So as Fred stated, by the end of 27, the containment structures right now on schedule are scheduled to come down. Right, so the domes will start to disappear. You can see that externally from the highway, but those will come down in 2027, if not late 2026. Okay, next slide. And decommissioning activities. So I talked to this a little bit. So large components, that was really focused on steam generators, large pumps. All of those items have been removed containments. The only thing we're still tracking on there are the removal of the spent fuel transfer tubes. I do have some photos there, and those activities have started. So I'll just wait till I get the photos. We'll talk about those. RV vessel segmentation, Unit 3 is nearing completion. Right now, what's left is the very bottom of the reactor vessel. It's called the bowl. That needs to be cut, segmented, packaged, and removed from containment, and that should wrap up segmentation on Unit 3. Unit 2 setup is in progress now, so the equipment that's needed for the future vessel cutting is being set up and put in place now. And then controlled building demolition, good progress there. Most of those buildings will come down here soon, and there's a new structure being built with some photos in there talking about that. It's the first of 2 decommissioning isolation enclosures. And what these are, they're very large tents. They're built outside and connected to each of the containments. The idea being that all the material inside a containment, as it becomes demolished and removed from the inside of containment, will stay inside of this tent structure. It'll get segregated, and then that material get loaded into rail cars, which can enter and exit the containment. So it's very similar to the material handling facility tent at the opposite end of the plant. Okay, next slide. Okay, fuel transfer tube. So this is a picture of Unit 3's fuel transfer tube. This is the external portion. So what you see here is a section of transfer tube from the containment, that's that blue painted area, to the fuel handling building, which is that big valve on the left-hand side. That valve on the left-hand side was actually in the pool when the pool was still there. So this has been separated. They use a wire saw. It's filled with concrete and grout to make it solid. The wire saw cuts through it, and then essentially we have a large concrete-filled piece of pipe. That piece is then removed, separated into smaller segments, 3 that get loaded into rail cars, gondolas, and then shipped off as solid waste. Okay, next slide. Okay, this is the rigging activity. So I just mentioned this is what it looks like when you rig it. It's actually rigged up and out of the hole, and then was placed into a temporary area where they basically cut it with a diamond wire saw in a ventilated structure, and then moved each one of those pieces after surveys into ISO containers and rail cars. So these pieces have left the site. Next slide. So this is a picture of the Unit 2 tank farm, and it shows you how quickly things can progress with the decommissioning. In August, we had probably, that's right there, is about 75–80% of the structure still there. The tank farm was actually contained 4 very, very large tanks. And by October, that entire structure is now removed. All the debris has been removed. It's basically down to ground level. And this also includes the removal of another auxiliary building next to it, right up against the containment, and then a underground piping that was used to feed the auxiliary building. So all of that's been removed. So good progress going on there. The Unit 3 tank farm was removed last year.
So Jim, real briefly, when you're referring to the tank farm, those are what we think of the areas where the rods were cooled after they were in the reactor. Is that correct?
No, a tank farm is just water storage tanks.
Oh,
so
okay.
Some of the water storage tanks are refilling water storage. So that would be water that you use during reactor refilling activities. You need to move it out of the cavity and store it, and then you use it again next time. So there were several of those, and there were several tanks that were considered condensate storage tank. So if you needed to use or make up condensate, you already had the tanks full of water, so they could be used at any time, including in an emergency.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, next slide. Fuel handling building. So fuel handling building continues. This was actually from September. Today, this is nearly gone. The only section of the fuel handling building that's left above the ground level is really about an 8 to 10 foot section on the very right or left hand side there, the east side. They use it kind of as a buffer barrier to keep anybody from accessing the lower portion of the fuel handling building on the other side. Okay, next slide. Safety equipment buildings. So I've got these a little out of order. So this is the Unit 2 safety equipment building. This recently started in early October, late September. The safety equipment building is the area of the plant during operations that housed all of our safety pumps. When I say, so these are safety injection pumps, some of the critical equipment that was required to safely shut down a reactor. It's multiple floors, several floors, and what you see are the upper 2 floors, and what you don't see is below ground. There's still another, probably another floor, right? So it really goes down at least another 15 more feet underground. So this is the demolition. It has started on Unit 2, so this is the second safety equipment building to be demoed. Next slide. And this is the Unit 3 safety equipment. So in June, you can see it's very similar to the Unit 2 side. It's basically, they were just going through the side panels, side concrete. And in October, that entire above ground structure has been removed, right? It's basically right up against containment. So you can see the full exterior of containment now. And in fact, we've now removed nearly all of the pumps below ground. I haven't confirmed that, but I believe there's might be 1 or 2 pumps left. But for the most part, all those pumps have been removed from below the ground level. Okay, next slide. So I talked about the decommissioning isolation enclosure. So it's a big, large steel structure that's wrapped with vinyl siding. It has a ventilation or a negative ventilation system connected to it. The exact system is used in the material handling tent. The idea being that the ventilation pulls a negative pressure so that there's only air in leakage in here. So while you're doing work in here, no matter what occurs, the air will move into the building and be collected. And this is where they will segregate the material that's from the inside of containment. So as the material gets removed from inside of containment, it'll come through the open hatch into this building. It'll get segregated here. It'll get loaded into rail cars here. On the right-hand side there's access east and west, or north and south, I'm sorry, that allows rail cars to come right into the building that can be loaded. So right now, this is, we are actively right now working on installing the vinyl siding. Next slide.
How large is that?
How large is that?
Is that like
Good
a football
question.
field?
Oh, it's larger than a football field.
Okay.
In fact, you could probably play the entire San Clemente football field right inside of here.
Okay.
It's pretty large. It's essentially twice as large as the material handling facility on the other end, and that held at least 3 rail cars.
All right, thank you.
Okay, vessels. So reactor vessel torch cutting equipment. So this is demobilization of the Unit 3. So really they're removing all the equipment that's not required. What you can see in this picture is that turnable lifting rod there in the middle right. It's being held up in vertically with the reactor lift system. That's that blue structure. That long rod comes right down the middle there, and what it's holding is the very bottom of the reactor vessel. So what needed to happen here was that rod is holding the vessel. They finished cutting. They're then going to sit that rod and vessel down, disconnect it from the lift system. And I will show you that on the next slide. So the reactor lift system, so this is where it gets connected. So it's disconnected, it's now removed over the top of the cavity. And then you go to the next slide. There's 2 boxes in the lower cavity. So these are the waste packaging boxes, right? There's one here and one here. That lower bowl vessel will then be picked up and placed right down into the middle of this box. They will then saw cut that vessel such that it fits in those 2 pieces or into each of the boxes. They'll close the sides in those boxes, the top in the boxes, and this box then becomes the shipping container that will go out on a rail car. So each one of these will get removed from containment, placed on a rail car, secured, and then sent to Clive. So where we are right now is the next slide. So this is the turnable lifting rod. It's lowering the bowl pieces down into those 2 boxes. That part's complete. This lifting rod was then no longer needed in Unit 3. So when they took it out of here, they then went down to the hatch to offload it. So this is when this occurred. What's in those 2 boxes now is the lower bowl, which is actively being wire saw cut as we speak. All right, so probably another week plus before we finish that activity, and then several weeks to get everything packaged up and that waste removed from containment. Okay, next slide. All right, equipment demob. You can kind of see the vessel there in the lower picture. On the left-hand side, it's in the boxes now. And then this is what a reactor vessel cavity looks like with no reactor vessel in it. All right, so they're basically removing all the equipment from Unit 3 and moving it to Unit 2. And the next slide. All right, so activities in Unit 2 looks a lot the same. They're just going the other direction. So this is now installation activities. They're building there on the left-hand side what they call the shield enclosure. So this enclosure goes around the vessel. It's designed to keep the flame cutting system contained. And then the ventilation system there on the right pulls ventilation during flame cutting such you can exhaust all of that heat and smoke from the building and maintain the safety in the building. And I think that's the last of my pictures. Yep, that's it. So if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. If not, I can wait till I hear some later.
Thank you, Jim.
Thank you.
Those photos are truly amazing when you think about everything that's going on, all the demolition. So I want to look and see if there's any questions from any of our CEP members. Victor, did you have a question?
No, I'm fine. I asked mine already.
Okay, Martha, how about you?
I just wanted to say thank you. I love the demolition pictures. So if I saw it in video, I'd like it even more. But you're right. It truly is amazing how this is, it changes just from August to October. So thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, and we do have lots of pictures, Martha. We tend to try to just pick the ones that tell the story. But every day we take photographs of the work, just to capture it, for our archives and history later. Okay, thank you.
I'm sure she'd like to see all of those. Thanks again, Jim. Up next, we have Mark Morgan, the SCE Regulatory Affairs Manager, and he's going to give us an update on the NRC regulatory compliance at San Onofre. Mark, are you there?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Excellent. So yes, I'm going to be talking about regulatory compliance tonight. Let's go ahead and go to the next slide. So we get about 6 on-site inspections from the NRC every year, and I'm going to be talking about the most recently completed inspection. This was the one that the NRC came out in July of 2025. The report came out at the end of September, and it is publicly available. It's in the NRC's document room called Adams, and the accession number there can be used to find the report if you want to dig through the details of it as well. In that report, there were 3 violations that were issued by the NRC. They were characterized as severity level 4 non-cited violations. And that is the lowest level of violation that the NRC issues in what they call traditional enforcement, which is the inspection regime that decommissioning plants are under. And then listed there are the 3 requirements that they cited us against and the reasons that we received the violation. So Part 20 in part has requirements about how you should post high radiation areas. We had an area that should have been posted as a high radiation area, but it was incorrectly posted as a radiation area, which is a lower standard. Part 37 is for protection of radioactive materials, and it requires, in some cases, physical barriers to control access to that material. We had an access barrier that the NRC thought had a design issue, and that resulted in a non-compliance there. And finally, we have tech spec requirements, technical specification requirements. They're part of our operating license that describe how we control locked high radiation areas. And again, we had an access barrier that had a design issue with it that the NRC took issue with. So again, these are the lowest of the 4 severity levels, and you see the word non-cited in there. A severity level 4 violation can either be cited or non-cited, and that usually depends on things like, was it immediately entered into your corrective action program? Was it repetitive? Was there anything willful about it? And none of those things applied, so it's a non-cited violation, and if it were cited, we'd have to provide a written response, but in this case, we're just expected to take appropriate corrective actions. So I'll walk through each of the 3 violations now. Can we go to the next slide? Okay, so Jim Petey talked about the tank farm, and it was that large concrete structure that held some of the water tanks from when the plant was operating. So this diagram kind of shows very simplistically what's going on there. The square there is the concrete enclosure that is around the tank, and then the circle just represents the tank itself. And as part of the demolition, we were doing decontamination work on the inside of the tank. And so what's happening is you have radioactive material that's being brought out of the tank, into the vault area and stored in some waste drums. And you can see those on the diagram as well. And then ultimately those drums either get emptied or removed in preparation for shipment offsite to an ultimate disposal site. So you have changing conditions. You have waste coming out of the tank, into the drums, out of the drums, into other areas of the plant. At one point, the drums were emptied and the radiation protection group performed a survey and downposted the area between the tank and the vault and turned it from a high radiation area into a radiation area. And that was appropriate for the conditions at the time. But then what happened is when work started back up later on, additional waste was brought out of the tank and placed in the drums. And there was a failure to recognize that conditions had changed again. There was not an appropriate survey that was done, and the area wasn't reposted as a high radiation area. Eventually, a worker tried to enter the vault area. He had radiation protection coverage with him. He was on a permit that allowed access to a radiation area, which is what everyone at the time thought the area was, but not a high radiation area. And his dosimetry had alarm set points that reflected the limits of a radiation area. That is a lower set point. So what happens is, as he's moving around in the vault area, eventually his dosimeter alarms. And at this point, the workers did exactly what you would expect them to. They stopped, they exited the area, they reported to RP, they evaluated his dosimetry and determined that the dose that he received was within the limits of the permit that he was on. So there was no overexposure of the worker, either in terms of health effects or based on the permit that he was in there on. So as you can see, that's the basis for the significance of the event, the way that the NRC issued it to us. All right, so let's go to the next slide. Okay, so this issue involves, of course, physical protection requirements for radioactive materials. So there's only so much that I can say, and that's why this slide is pretty clean. But we did have an access door on site that we were crediting as a barrier for Part 37 purposes. And again, that's protection of radioactive materials to prevent theft or diversion or sabotage or something like that. And again, the NRC identified an issue with the design of the door and ultimately determined that it was inadequate for the purposes of Part 37 protection. But I do want to point out that the risk of unauthorized access was very low. In fact, it was actually zero, based on two things. One is the physical characteristics of the door, which again, I can't get into the details of it. And then by defense in depth of the program, there's really an electronic monitoring system on that door. And so we were able to review the logs for that system and determine that there was no unauthorized access to the Part 37 area. And certainly we were able to inventory all the material that we were protecting and nothing is missing. So there was no theft or diversion. So again, the significance of this is going to be considered very low. And that's how it was issued by the NRC. Next slide. Finally, again, this is an issue with an access door. This time it's being used as a control point for a locked high radiation area. And you can see the regulatory definition of a locked high radiation area there. Similar to the previous issue, the NRC identified an issue with the design of the door. Similar to the other door, it was alarmed. We were able to review the alarm logs and determine that there was no unauthorized entry. And as a result, there was no overexposure of personnel. So I think you can see that that all three of these issues, there was no, for the radiological issues, there was no overexposure of site personnel, and certainly there's no impact on the public. And for the Part 37 issue, again, there was no theft or diversion of material. So that's the basis for the significance again. But as Fred mentioned, we take these issues very seriously, and as your regulatory compliance manager, we want to strive for absolute verbatim compliance. So we have entered all of these issues into our corrective action program. They have gone through the cause evaluation process. Corrective actions have been identified and implemented. And the idea is that we want to stamp out these problems when they are small so that they don't grow into bigger problems down the line. So that's the end of my presentation, unless there's any questions.
Thank you, Mark. We appreciate you explaining the violations and certainly SCE's corrective actions for everyone. Let me look real quickly to see if anyone is raising their hand to ask any questions. I see none. Thanks once again, Mark. With that, we'll move on to the next slide. And here we have Ron Pontus, who's going to talk about the environmental update. Can you hear us,
Hey,
Ron?
thanks. Yeah, thank you, Dan. Appreciate it. And thanks to everyone that's online. Just go on to the next slide. I'll talk about two topics here. One is the tritium update, tritium in groundwater. The other one is we're going to discuss a bit the notice of violation we received from DTSC about the hazardous waste facility. But let's start with the groundwater tritium update. On the left-hand side, you can see a graph that shows the trend in the wells that we have around well PA2. And you can see what the trend there is. We recently seen an uptick in a number of those wells. That was over the last two sample periods, which we're sampling like once a month now on these wells. This is probably not unusual. We've seen this sawtooth type of behavior before, but we'll be keeping an eye on it. If this continues to rise, we'll increase our monitoring frequency to once every 2 weeks. Okay, so something that is new, I don't believe I touched on this at our last meeting, but in the Unit 3 side, which you can see on the diagram at the bottom left, it points to PA2 and then it points to PA4. PA4 is a well down on the south end of Unit 3 along the westerly side, and we picked up a detection of tritium there in a sample taken in the third quarter of 25. That was actually obtained on July 30th, and we got the sample results back from the lab in around 27 or 28 of August. Somewhere around that time frame is when we got the results. So that was our first indication seeing that. So we bumped up the frequency on that well from quarterly to monthly initially, and then we most recently gone to every 2 weeks on it. Now there is a companion well that's just about 30 feet away, MW10. It's not a well that we would normally sample for tritium in the groundwater, but we have been sampling it for some time since we discovered the tritium in PA2, and it doesn't show any detection of tritium. So that's good news. Now, what are we doing about the Unit 3 side? We are again engaging a hydrogeologist to advise us on the best placement for some wells around PA4 so that we can better understand the size of the plume in that area and get a better prediction of where it's coming from up gradient. To be completely transparent, I don't know where this tritium plume is originating. We are suspicious that it could be coming from water that was in the safety equipment building, or it could have been coming from the area of the former tank farm on the Unit 3 side where we were treating water for release previously. So don't have an answer to that, but as we continue to monitor, we'll get more information and we'll continue to share that. One thing before, well, let's go to the next slide. So it's really important to understand that the levels of tritium that we're monitoring here are not a threat to human health or to the environment. They're in fact very low, and we're not a drinking water site. The water that underlies the Song site is brackish, and under the San Diego Basin Plan, it's not drinking water. But the levels are quite a bit below the 20,000 picocuries per liter limit by the EPA, so we're way below that. And the other thing is, and I've mentioned this before, we measured all the tritium that was released from the area of the Unit 2 side across the site boundary, and we calculated 0.008 curies were released. It's a very tiny fraction of what we released during that year for the monitored releases to the ocean. So the dose there was insignificant. And then finally, I do want to raise awareness that tritium in groundwater below a decommissioning plant, a plant undergoing this deconstruction process, is not unusual. We saw this in Unit 1. And then there's some other plants here with links if you care to look at them. Connecticut Yankee had problems Yankee Row, Big Rock Point, La Crosse most recently. So, and there are others. I didn't try to make a comprehensive list, but these are some that I looked at, and you can plainly see they had similar problems, and they monitored the tritium until the tritium had dissipated or attenuated to a point below the drinking water standard and below NRC standards. And notably, most of these other sites had drinking water below their reactors, unlike what we have. So some information there if anybody's interested in looking it up. All right, then let's go to the next slide. Okay, so we had the DTSC on site earlier this month to perform an audit of our hazardous waste storage facility. So they do this annually, typically in November. They've been doing it for years and years and years. This particular visit, the inspector had a finding. She took note of some small holes that were drilled in the concrete floor of the Section A of the hazardous waste facility. And she gave us a violation for that. And you can read it there on the left, a lot of words, but she's saying that we were not in compliance with our permit, okay? And she gave us 2 corrective actions. One, to notify the DTSC project manager that's responsible for the permit within 24 hours. We've done that. And to also remedy these holes within 15 days. I can tell you that we just finished filling in these holes just a few minutes ago, so that's been remedied in this area. So we've done those corrective actions. We have yet to report that second part out to the DTSC yet, though. Now, so we took a look at the citation that we received, or the audit finding, if you will. She did correctly note that there were a number of half-inch diameter holes in the hazardous waste facility hazmat area, Section A, secondary containment, which is the concrete pad. The holes were installed by us in June of 2021 while we were performing radiological characterization of the hazardous waste facility. So just a little reminder on what radiological characterization is. As we get into the decommissioning process, we want to be able to assess how much residual radioactivity exists in the structures here. So we test the structures by obtaining samples. In this case, we are obtaining concrete samples from the facility, and those samples will be sent off-site to a lab and measured to see how much radioactivity are in them. Those holes varied in depth up to a maximum of 2.5 inches, okay? There was a 1/2 inch hole, 1 inch hole, and 2.5 inch hole, the deepest, the 2.5 inch. The secondary containment is a minimum 6 inch thick reinforced concrete pad, and I'll show you in a moment what that looks like. And we conclude that the concrete pad is sufficiently impervious to contain leaks, spills, and accumulated precipitation. And that is where we have a difference with the inspector. We believe that we're in compliance with the permit, while she says she doesn't believe that to be the case, apparently by the citation that we received. So we believe the secondary containment is compliant with the permit. That's kind of our position here. Let's go to the next slide, and you understand better what I'm talking about. First on the left is, where is the hazardous waste storage facility? It's not something we talk about a lot, but in the southern end of the plant is another restricted area, and it's located within that restricted area. And you can see on the left there, in that yellow circle, is where the facility is located. On the right, you can see a photograph of the hazmat area, Section A, secondary containment. So you will take note that this is a concrete pad with a berm. The berm is at least 12 inches tall, taller in a lot of areas, taller than that in a lot of areas, by the way. And it's open to the environment, other than having a roof over it. And then on the pad that you're looking at, the concrete pad, is the secondary containment. That's it. That pad's 6 inches thick. It's reinforced with steel, and these tiny holes that were left there did not in any way compromise the function of that pad. And then you can see some other, you can see the electronic waste that was stored there when this photograph was taken. And on the right-hand side, you see some drums, those orange drums. Those are empty overpack drums. By the way, all that waste has been removed and has been packaged for shipment off-site by now. So that's what it looks like. And let's go to the next slide. So we officially notified the DTSC project manager on November 5th, and we're on track to remedy the condition by today. And I think it's all done, is what report I just received a few minutes ago. We also informed the Nuclear Regulatory Commission. So here's how things work here, since we're licensed by the NRC to operate a commercial nuclear plant. By NRC regulations, if we have an interaction with a local or state agency or even another federal agency about an existing permit that we're working under or a license condition under their regulations that we're working under that we may have violated for some reason, and we've received such a violation from those agencies, we have to tell the NRC about that occurrence. So we did that. We did that on November 5th at 13:58 in the afternoon. So what does the NRC do with that information? They take the information down that we provide into a report and they post it on our website so that others can see it. So that's the purpose of that report. So that information is pushed out for public awareness as well. So we are talking this over with the DTSC. We've been in touch with them. We are respectfully requesting the DTSC to retract the finding. That's entirely up to the agency to decide whether to retract it or not. But we believe that we are compliant with the permit. Now, they have 65 days from the time of the audit to finalize their inspection report. Usually they finish that earlier, much earlier than 65 days. So I would anticipate over the next month and a half or so, we'll probably see a report, but they do have up to 65 days. So that's where we stand on this issue. And just one closing remark. There was no release of any radioactivity as a result of this, and there was no release of any hazardous waste material. And I think that kind of wraps up what I wanted to share with the folks tonight, unless there's questions.
Thank you, Ron. Yes, Martha has her hand up. Martha? You're on mute, Martha. Martha,
Yeah.
you're on. There we go.
Yeah. Can we go back to what I was trying to follow what the actual observation was or the finding was on, I'm trying to yeah, that one. So
Yeah.
They said you failed to comply with the conditions that said it was free to be free of cracks or gaps. But what did they find? That there was a gap or there was?
Okay, they observed, here's what I can tell you, Martha. Okay. The inspector observed small holes in the concrete pad. Those holes are very small. They're like a 1/2 inch in diameter, and the deepest is like 2.5 inches thick. The total thickness of the concrete pad, by the way, is 6 inches. So they only partially penetrate the pad.
Okay.
This inspector thought that that was non-compliant. Okay. And our view is that we are compliant because the pad in this condition remains impervious to any leaks, spills, or accumulated precipitation. So we feel that it is compliant. So there's a difference of professional opinion here, if you will. We certainly respect the inspector's view on this, of course, and we are discussing this matter with them to see if there's any movement by the agency and the inspector about their view on this matter.
What were those holes, or in 1/2 inch by 2.5 inch holes for? Were they part of how the concrete was poured, or
no?
Were they intended to be something else?
Yeah. So as part of the decommissioning process, one of the initial steps that we take is to determine what residual radioactivity exists in the structures that are here. Okay. So we'll take samples, in this case, samples of concrete. We drill holes. That powder then is packaged, sent to a lab, and the laboratory measures that concrete for radioactivity.
Okay, so those were your sample holes.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, all right. Somehow I missed that.
Yeah,
Thank you.
sorry. I was
Thank you.
talking a lot here, so maybe
I know, I was trying to follow, but sometimes I don't. Okay,
No,
thank
you
you
just-
so much.
You're welcome.
Yeah, Martha, thank you, because I needed to understand that as well. Victor, go ahead.
Yeah, I want to go back to the groundwater, and as I understand, we have a great understanding of and measurement of what's leaking and how much. But I thought you suggested that we're trying to find the source, but that's not yet completed. Is that correct so far?
Yes, it's
Okay.
pretty difficult for us to identify exactly where the tritium's coming from. I mean, on the Unit 2 side, we suspect strongly it came from a condition in the Unit 2 main steam isolation valve trench, which is a feature that exists between the containment building and the SE, the safety equipment building. Okay, so we have some history on that particular component that indicated that it leaked, the concrete structure leaked to groundwater, and we know that tritiated water was held up in that area. So that is suspicious and, in our opinion, likely to be the source, but we can't say that with 100% confidence. On the Unit 3 side, Victor, we don't know. I am a bit suspicious that it might be related to the work in the safety equipment building, since we recently opened up the Unit 3 safety equipment building and started demolishing and removing pumps from the lower parts of that building. And as we remove the pumps, a lot of dust suppression water collects there, and that water becomes tritiated from the concrete. So that's a potential leak path as well. Just don't know at this point.
So are we going to, are we required to find the source, or do we have any effort to identify what that source is or mitigate?
Well, it's a good practice to try to understand where it's coming from to see if we can mitigate it in some way, of course, and that's what we're trying to understand. But up gradient, there's a tremendous amount of deconstruction work going on. We're literally, breaking up the plant. So, yeah, and I think it's important too to understand the properties of the concrete. Okay, when we were operating the plant, the concrete structures behaved like a sponge, if you will, to absorb tritium. So tritium's, like water, so it gets absorbed into concrete. Later, when we start this process to demolish the plant and break that concrete up, and while we're breaking it up, we're using water to suppress dust. That tritium migrates out of the concrete and into that dust suppression water. So that's something that's happening all the time with these demolition processes on a commercial nuclear unit. So that suppression water potentially is a source for the tritium that's getting into the groundwater through some leak path that we haven't yet determined.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Ron. I think that was a great job of explaining everything. Looking to see if there's any other questions from our
Hand up.
Fred has his hand up. Fred, do you have a
Yes,
question, Fred?
no, thank you. Just Ron, did you want to mention the potential for liquid batch release? That's a completely separate topic, but please go ahead. We had mentioned earlier that we did not anticipate any more batch releases for this year, rather next year, but I think there's a potential for some release, right?
Actually, we have been forecasting another release this year, Fred. But that information's in the backup to the presentation in the read-only section. And we're forecasting right now around 70,000 gallons would be released over the course of the last part of November and December. That number's a little soft. I don't have an exact number about how much we'll release, but that's what we're anticipating right now for this year.
Okay, so we're maintaining that potential forecast estimated to go.
Yeah,
for this year.
and thank you for reminding me, Fred. I had it on my notes to mention that, and I forgot to do that. Thank you.
Thank you both. It was in my notes too. Let's go ahead and thank you for advancing the slides to that particular area for sure. Okay, well, thank you very much, Ron. I think that takes care of all of the questions. Thanks again for a comprehensive explanation. So let's go ahead for the next slide, please. Here again are the directions for public comment. The CEP comment link is available to submit a question or to sign up to speak online. The names of individuals who have signed up to speak will be displayed on the slide. I will call your name when it's your turn to speak. As before, everyone will have 3 minutes to speak per person. A countdown timer will be on the screen, and we will have an hour dedicated to the public comment segment of the meeting. As always, after public comments, Victor Cabral and Martha McNicholas will facilitate public dialogue, addressing questions in the order that they are received. So next slide, please. So with that, I'd like to once again thank everyone that has presented thus far and for the questions. And we're going to take I can't believe it, we are actually on schedule to basically to the minute. But we're going to take a 5-minute break so we can stay on schedule. See you in 5, everyone. Okay, let's, if we could, go ahead and get started on our next section. If we could advance a slide, please. And right now, we don't have anyone in the speaker queue. So as this is a first in 10 years. In case, while we're waiting, let me ask a question, if I may, of Fred. Fred, you recently went back to Washington, D.C., or I don't know if it was Washington, D.C. You actually went back east, and you were involved in a series of meetings, and I believe there was a conference going on. Could you please tell us what the conference was, who some of the folks you might have met with, and anything that might be relevant to share with the folks on this call?
Okay, thanks, Dan. I think you're referring to the NEI decommissioning conference that took place at the beginning. That was last week. Unfortunately, I was not able to attend, but we did get the feedback, and Ron was at the meeting, and other folks from the group. And what was interesting was, I would say, 2 things. For a decommissioning conference, there was quite some discussion about how to restart plants that had shut down. Of course, at San Onofre, we're way past trying to restart San Onofre units 2 and 3. But there were talks about plants on the East Coast and Middle East, and the other piece, there were some positive reaction and feedback about the fact that we had shared the pictures after the community engagement panel did challenge us to basically saying, well, if there's no issue with the canisters, why don't you share the pictures? So there was positive feedback on that.
Thank you. Also, if you could comment, or maybe Ron would comment, there was some executive orders that were issued, and my understanding is that on January 18th, the Department of Energy has to come back with some updates and provide some guidance moving forward. Could you or Ron or someone give us an update on what we might expect in the new year?
Well, I listened to a lot of that discussion while I was at the this decommissioning conference, but really the person that would be best equipped to answer that question would probably be Mark Morgan.
Yeah, so I'll take that, Ron. So one of the elements of the executive orders is for the NRC to go back and take an entire look at their regulatory framework. So, and it's not real specific in the executive order, but I take that to mean Title 10 of the Code of Federal Regulations. So that's the set of regulations that governs what we do. So the NRC was given a 9-month deadline to produce a draft set of new regulations. So that the orders were issued in late May. So that puts us in late February when they're going to issue a draft set of regulations. The expectation is going to be that there's going to be a 30-day public comment window, and then the NRC will take whatever feedback they get back and they will revise their draft regulations and issue them 18 months from when the executive orders were issued. So that would be sometime in late 2026. During the government shutdown, one of the things that did continue was the NRC's work on the items in the executive orders. So we are expecting changes to the regulatory framework. I think the two things that most specifically impact decommissioning is that they are taking another look at what's known as the linear no threshold model, which is the model that says that as you decrease in dose, there are still health effects all the way down to zero. Of course, those health effects decrease as you get down to zero. And that's part of the basis for the as low as reasonably achievable concept that we have in our radiation protection programs. So they're looking at moving away from the linear no threshold model and the ALARA concept. I don't know any details about that. The other thing that affects decommissioning plants is one aspect of decommissioning funding, which is that it allows operating plants to use funds from their decommissioning trust funds to dispose of major components. So for instance, replacement steam generators, which we did when we were operating. And we also replaced our reactor vessel heads. You can't normally access your decommissioning trust fund until after you've shut down and submitted your certifications of permanent cessation of operations and submitted your post-shutdown decommissioning activities report and had a certain period of review by the NRC. So all those things have to happen normally before you can touch your decommissioning trust fund and use it for decommissioning activities. But the industry has been pushing for a long time to carve out an exception to allow use for disposal of these major radioactive components ahead of decommissioning.
Yes, and that's important, Mark, to mention ahead of decommissioning. It's an expense that's part of decommissioning activities. Those large components, some utilities decided to store them on site for a very long period until they get to decommissioning, so that they can access the nuclear decommissioning trust fund to do these activities. So the rationale is, well, this is going to be waste from the operation of the plant. It's going to be part of decommissioning. So that's why the industry had been pushing for this. And another point, Dan, maybe on a different topic related to the Department of Energy, we're also expecting the Department of Energy to issue a report on how they are going to look at spent fuel management strategy, whether it's interim storage, centralized interim storage, a repository program restart or expansion, and certainly also evaluation of reprocessing and recycling activities, as there has been a lot of discussion around this topic in the past, I would say the past year.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mark, and thank you, Fred. Looking around, I don't see any other questions from any of our CEP members. There's Martha. Got one for Martha. Go ahead, Martha.
We do have one question that was submitted. Should we go to that or still hold for any speakers?
Nope, the time has passed. Let's go on with the question at hand.
Okay, this is from Noelle Moore. She says, thank you for the information provided to the public tonight. Two questions. One, I heard that some of the removed parts will be put on railway cars. Where are the parts materials being transported to? And number two is, how does one get a recording for tonight? So those are two different people to answer those two different questions.
I'll jump on the first one. All of the rail cars are destined for Clive, Utah. That's where Energy Solutions maintains a facility for taking Class A waste from plants like ours. That's what that waste is.
Okay.
And
And
for
then-
the second part, I mean, the meeting are being recorded, and then you can find those and access to those on the songscommunity.com under the community engagement panel section of it.
Okay, I think that should do it. As far as questions, let me see if it's, nope. I don't see any others either.
Victor? You're on mute, Victor. Victor, you're still on mute.
Reflecting on the October 16th special meeting where all of the thousands of photos were released, and the special professor that were brought in from the University of Virginia. I think it answered probably 40% of the people, 50% of the people that used to get on every meeting and just raise. There's got to be something that we're hiding, something that's been being hidden. And once they got all the information, I think they were completely satisfied. And I think that's what's good about being transparent, is that you sometimes answer the questions and realize that, you know, once you've answered them, the people will move on to new issues. So again, congratulate the Southern California Edison for disclosing all that and making our life a little bit easier.
Well put, Victor. Well put.
Mm.
Okay, I don't see any other questions. I think we will go ahead and wrap up the public comment section and move on to our final couple of sections. So if we could have the next slide, please. And Fred, I want to turn it over to you for your closing comments.
Yeah, thank you. I want to thank the team for the preparation of this meeting. As always, there's a lot of work that goes into it. I also want to thank the feedback for the October 16th seminar. Victor, thank you very much. I want to thank you, Dan, and the panel members and the public for participating in tonight's meeting, and for the engagement of the panel members and one member of the public. This is our last meeting of the year. We always appreciate the challenge, and we hope the engagement continues in 2026. We work hard to provide you with facts and information, whether it's during the CEP meetings or tours or speaking engagements, and on our website. So this is available to you. We're committed to keeping the CEP and the local communities up to date on the project and on the continued safe storage of spent nuclear fuel at San Onofre, and working, of course, making sure the continued storage is as short as possible, but we're definitely working on it. Those are my takeaways and closing remarks, Dan.
Okay, thank you, Fred. Next slide, please. These are some of the resources that Fred was referring to. So
yes,
please go ahead and visit the website, and you can get all the information that you would like there. And you can also sign up for a public tour if you're interested. Fred had mentioned when the next one is coming up. So a lot of resources there. Thank you. Let's go ahead and move on to the next slide, please. Okay. First of all, I'd like to say that it's kind of amazing all that we have covered in this past year. When you look back in our 5 meetings, and then you look at the slides in terms of what has taken place, there really has been a lot of progress moved on this. But I first and foremost want to appreciate and value SCE's commitment to transparency. I think we all agree that it's vital to building trust, and I want to echo what Victor said and how important that is, and we're grateful, very grateful and appreciative of that. We're also very thankful that there have been over 3 million hours without a lost time accident. I think that speaks a lot to your commitment to safety. And we're pleased to hear that the project is scheduled for completion in late 2028. That's amazing too. Unfortunately, we understand there were a few violations, but we're thankful that there are corrective actions that were taken so that none of those happen again. And once again, we want to thank Dr. Burns for his 10/16 meeting and for participating again this evening. And those are my takeaways. And with that, we'll go on to the next slide, please. Here you see a schedule for our meetings coming up in this next year. These are, of course, tentative. And if you being the general public, you have specific topics that you would like us to include or to tackle, please reach out to members of the CEP and we will hopefully be able to address those. Also, you may note on the very bottom, we're going to be having on December 15th, a CEP member consultation meeting. And at that time, we will be talking about the projections for this next year, what we hope to talk about. And of course, if there are any suggestions that were made, we certainly want to tackle those at that time. So then let's go ahead and move on to our next slide, please.
Can I stop for 1 second?
Victor,
I think
of
this
course.
is this year's meeting schedule.
Oh,
Right.
okay.
Not next year's.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you for the correction, Victor. I'm leaping
I
ahead.
just,
So these are the ones that we already covered.
yes.
So on December 15th, we will be tackling what we're going to be doing next year. I know I need to depend on you guys. Thank
Yes,
you.
No, I just wanted to make sure I didn't get we didn't put up the wrong.
No.
Document.
The slide as usual is correct. And as usual, I'm the one in error.
Okay.
Fred, did you want to say something?
I was going to say we're going to publish and work on the next topics and hear what the CEP members and the community wants to see addressed, and we'll work together and publish the schedule for next year as soon as possible, right? Dan?
That'd be great. Martha, did you have any closing thoughts?
No, not really.
Okay, then we will move on to the final slide. And want to thank everyone for a very productive and engaging year. You are all deeply appreciated. And on behalf of the CEP, we want to wish you and your families a Thanksgiving filled with gratitude, joy, cherished moments with your loved ones. So with that, I want to wish you all a very happy Thanksgiving and a very good night. And I can't believe we are actually ending early. Good night, all.
First.
Thank you.
Okay. Good night.
Thanks, everybody.
Good night.